And let me just say that our AGYW champions will be taking us through the presentation, and so that you can hear what Malawi is doing. And to start by us, the national coordinators at national level, and how the AGYW program is, and then before we go into the nitty-gritties of the topic today. And let me just say that our AGYW champions will be taking us through the presentation, and so that you can hear what Malawi is doing. And to start by us, the national coordinators at national level, and how the AGYW program is, and then before we go into the nitty-gritties of the topic today. Okay, and at this point, maybe before we start everything, I would like to take this moment in a special way to thank the South to South Learning Network, specifically Kerry, who is the executive director there, for doing a wonderful job. We are really getting higher and higher and making a lot of strides in this initiative. I know when it started during the COVID era, but now it's getting momentum, it's gathering momentum. So well done, Kerry, and we'll continue working with you, and we look forward to your continued support. And in a special way, also Maria, who is our focal point for Malawi. Thank you for facilitating this, and we're looking forward for your continued support. Okay, the next thing we'll go through the agenda. Can we go through the agenda? And on number one, we've done the introductions. As I've said, can you please write in the chat? Maybe I can introduce myself as I'm chairing and facilitating this. I'm Dr. Andrina Mansambo, and I'm the head of HIV prevention and management and AGYW issues under my portfolio. But I have very capable AGYW champions, and including the focal point, Anna Kutengule, and others are Alice, and the team is Mahara and Edwin that will also present this afternoon. And Jacob Piri will also present. So quickly going through the agenda is we've already done number one, where we've welcomed you, and feel free, this is a learning point, and then we need to feel free and discuss. So I'm quickly going through the agenda. We'll go through, first of all, the promising practice presentation, which is the way, why, and the what. And this will be like an overview context that will be given by our AGYW champion, Anna Kutengule from NAC, who will take us through the AGYW programming in Malawi, an overview, and also the key evidence and factors that have informed the activities of the program. And later on, we'll have a presentation from our AGYW Secretariat, and will be taken by Jacob Piri, who is one of the AGYW champions. It will take us through the description of the National AGYW Screening and Referral Tool, which is the topic of this link and learn session, and will take us through of the target population, the behavior outcomes, and what the referral tool is about. And thereafter, we'll need also to go into the how, because it's one thing to have a tool and put up systems, but then we need to know the how. How has this tool been used? So we'll hear from our stakeholder, our World Vision Implementer Global Fund implementing partner, Edwin Nkata, who will take us through, and thereafter there's some additions and even presentations from the partners from Pakachiri, who also add to the presentation. But what is important and interesting to all of you is that we'll also hear some testimonies to AGYW themselves. Because us at national level, we can put up beautiful programs, but then if we need to hear from the beneficiaries themselves, how are they using the tool? How have they benefited from the tool? And we'll have discussion Q&A, and finally we'll allow participating countries to give us their takeaway messages from this. So in short, this is what we'll do this afternoon. So if there are no any further clarifications or any need for further information, maybe we can quickly dive into the presentation since we are started a bit late. So I would like to invite Anna.
Thank you, Dr. Mansambo. As she has mentioned, I will take you through the contextual overview of the HYW program in Malawi. To start off, I'll give some demographic information. So the National Statistics Office of Malawi conducted a population and housing census in 2018. And that census projected that Malawi's youth population, and we're looking at the ages of 10 to 24, would be at close to 6.2 million by the year 2020. And this represents 34% of the total population. And our AGYW fall into this age range, age category. And as we are all aware, young people, and especially the adolescent girls and young women, are highly vulnerable to HIV due to a number of factors, which could be biological, behavioral, and structural. And when it comes to HIV in Malawi, the adolescent girls and young women account for about 3,300 of the total new HIV infections. And this is representing 22% of total new HIV infections annually. And if we look at the graph that is to our right-hand side of the slide, this graph is showing the HIV incidence in the different age groups. So we will note that the age between 25 to 29 report is showing the highest HIV incidence. And this is according to the spectrum estimates for 2023. So all along, when we're talking about the HYW program in Malawi, we were targeting those of the age groups 10 to 24. But due to this emerging evidence, where we see that the 25 to 29 are showing higher incidence, which is about 3 times higher than the 15 to 19 age band, Malawi has redefined the age band for HYW in as far as HIV program is concerned to now be 10 to 24. Next slide, please. So on this slide, we have the 2 graphs. So on the left side, we're just trying to show the trend in HIV incidence over the years from 2018 to 2022. 2018 is when we launched our HYW strategy, which I'll talk more on later. But what we notice is, as we look at the different age bands, we notice a decrease in the HIV incidence. It's been reducing over the years across all the age bands. But if we zero in to look at an age band, so for example, 15 to 19, we note that the incidence is much higher for the females than the males. And this is the same across the different age bands. And to the right, we have that graph that is just emphasizing that the 25 to 29-year-olds are reporting, so the females especially, are reporting higher HIV incidence. Next slide, please. So I did mention the HYW strategy. So this is what provides us a holistic and multi-sectoral governance framework to improve access and to streamline services across sectors for HYW. So the work we do in Malawi is guided by the HYW strategy. And the strategy has 4 objectives which are across different sectors. We have an objective in health, which is to increase access to and uptake of comprehensive nutrition, SRH, and HIV services for young people. And again, we have an objective in education to increase access to and completion of quality primary and post-primary education, including informal and vocational learning for HYW. And an objective under gender equality and protection is to remove cultural barriers, negative gender stereotypes that contribute to gender-based violence and discrimination against HYW. And under economic empowerment, it's to enhance opportunities and meaningful participation for youth with a focus on HYW. So as I mentioned earlier that HYW are vulnerable, so our program tries to address whatever vulnerabilities an HYW would face in the different facets of life. So in light of all this, the Malawi AGYW team developed a national HYW screening tool to identify the HYW who are at most risk. So coming to that point, I would now like to hand over to Jacob Piri, who will take us through a description of the national HYW screening tool. Thank you.
Thank you, Anna. Over to Jacob. And please, participating countries, if you have any issue for clarity or question, you can already start putting them in the chat box so that when we come to discussions and Q&A, at least we already have your questions and or comments. Over to you, Jacob.
All right, thank you very much, Dr. Andrina, and good afternoon to all the participating countries. I am Jacob Wamepiri, as earlier introduced, and I will take you through a presentation basically on the HIV screening tool and the referrals. This is how I'm going to organize my presentation. First of all, I'll give you a background as to where exactly we're coming from, what we did before, and which actually led to the position that we are at. I also explain the vision that we have as a country and the processes that we undertook to really get to realize that kind of vision. But then I'll talk about the screening tool that is the focus of our discussion today. I'll mainly talk about the domains of assessment and not exactly the little details in the tool. I'm sure we have had an opportunity to really look at the actual tool, and if there are any questions regarding the smaller details, I think that those could be asked and be able to answer them. And then lastly, I'll talk about the principles that really guide this whole process of screening for HYWs. And my colleague Edwin will take us from there. Next slide, please. So how exactly did we get to this level? One key thing that I would like to start with is that I would like our participants to understand that we have our HYW vision, which is basically based on the realization that no matter how good our sector specific programs are, we will not be able to make our HYWs reach their potential if you do not enhance coordination and collaboration. And one key thing to do is to really have standardized tools at national level that all the implementing partners are able to work with. So one of the key things that we realized was to come up with to harmonize the HRW screening tool, because we had a lot of implementing partners. We had Global Fund, we had PEPFAR, we had a lot of other partners, each of them having their own risk assessment tools. And that became a bit difficult for the country program to really enhance our level of coordination and actually to also help our partners to do referrals across sectors and across the different partners. So there was a need to have a harmonized tool that is actually utilized by all the partners that we have. Again, as Anna was talking about the HRW program in Malawi, she talked about the different strategic objectives that we have. And you understand that these are done across different sectors. And sometimes as people define or design programs, they're usually sector specific or program specific, and they leave out the other key things that also integral to our HYW programming. So what we did was to come up with a context-specific screening tool that resonates well with the aspirations and well-being of HYWs in Malawi, which are reflected in the strategic objectives that Anna already talked about. Again, also to help our country enhance its the quality of programming, basically to look at the comprehensiveness that we really needed as a country. Those need to really be able to identify those risks comprehensively so that HYWs are able to be linked to different services or to different interventions, depending on the specific risks or vulnerabilities that have been identified to them. Another issue to note is our understanding that the risks that HYWs have usually evolve, and the tools that we had before reflected the kind of vulnerabilities or risks that we had identified as a country. But as time went by, there are also other issues that were coming in that were emerging, for example, issues to do with mental health that also had to be reflected as we do the risk assessments that we had. And those emerging issues had to be reflected in the tools that we had to develop. So basically, our goal is to have a tool that helps us to identify and record a comprehensive list of risks applicable to each and every HYW based on available evidence, and also be able to refer such HYWs, depending on their risks, to the required service or intervention. And next slide, please. So what we did as a country is we have what we call the HRW Core Team. Basically, this is composed of representations of officers, technical officers from the different ministries, Ministry of Health, Ministry of Education, of Gender, of Youth. We also have technical officers from the National AIDS Commission, from the National Youth Council of Malawi, from the Ministry of Local Government, and also from the key implementing partners in HYW, namely the Global Fund, the PEPFAR, and many other key stakeholders in HYW. We also have actually HYWs themselves as part of this group. What we are trying to do is to make sure that the voices of each and everyone who is very important in this sector is brought together, and together we are able to use our experiences wherever we're working with, in the sectors that we're working, or in the specific programmatic areas that we focus on, bring all those skills together, discuss things together, and come up with tools that really reflect our needs as a country and the specific issues that may affect the different sectors that we work with. So we have that team that basically provides the technical guidance in terms of HYW programming in Malawi. And through that team, we were able to hire a consultant. And together with the consultant, we actually had to develop this comprehensive HYW screening tool that was discussed and validated and even piloted together with the whole team. The idea, again, is to make sure that what we have is acceptable by everyone who is in the space. We don't want to leave anyone's voice in the process, so that by doing that, we're able to have something that is acceptable, not just acceptable, but again, reflective of what our HYWs as a country need. Next slide, please. So, upon realizing the strategic objectives that I talked about, as a team, we discussed now which are the main domains that we think really affect our HYWs in Malawi and should actually be reflected in the screening tool. So number one was in education, and if you go to the tool, there are specific questions there to do with whether someone is in school, if not in school, why exactly they're not in school, so that we're able to understand what are the risks that could be identified that are related to education, and that actually guides the ones doing the assessment to really know where exactly to refer this kind of a person. And then the second domain that we thought would be very necessary in the tool is on social protection and support. And we're talking about the questions to do with how HYWs feel wherever they are. But if they actually think there's a need to help themselves, if they have thought of ending their own lives, and other questions that to do with their mental health and social protection. And the tool also provides guidance as to where, depending on the answers that are given, as to where these HYWs could be linked to. And the third domain that we looked at is on knowledge about HIV and SRHR. And we also have a number of questions that are related to that as a third domain. And then we have the actual uptake of SRHR and HIV services as a domain number 4, where they would like actually to understand if the HYWs are able to they are able to access services. There may be HIV services, there may be family planning services, and all the services that we think would be applicable to them. And if not, where exactly can these be linked to? And the fifth domain is on risk-taking behaviors, because we also want to understand what are the risky behaviors that the HYWs are really involved in. And if they are, where exactly can they be linked to? Where exactly can they get intervention or services that are aimed at, managing such kind of risks? And then we have another domain, which is on experience of violence. We'd also want to understand if HYWs have had experiences of any violence. It may be sexual exploitation, it may be physical violence, and any other violences that they can may have experienced in their lives, and also be able to really understand as to where exactly they can be linked to. And the final domain is on alcohol and drug abuse, because that's another problem that we have had reported regularly as being a problem among our youth and HYWs in particular. So we have also questions there in the risk tool that tells us how someone could have a risk in terms of drug abuse or alcohol, and where exactly they could be linked to access a service. And finally, on the tool, we have now a section that now provides for case planning and referrals. As they ask the questions, there are spaces where they teach to really understand if they can be linked for a service. And after doing that, they summarize the information at the end to ensure that depending on the risks that have been identified, the HYW actually is able to be referred and access the required services. Next slide, please. And now, as we do these screenings, what exactly underpins that kind of a process? Number one is, as I said, our understanding is that for us to really help our HYWs achieve their full potential, there's need to comprehensively plan for them, program for them, and provide services to them in a comprehensive manner. That also demands a comprehensive and holistic assessment of risks and vulnerability, because if you miss out on this one, then we are not able to really refer these girls to the risks that, to the services that respond to the different vulnerabilities that have been identified. So we expect the kind of risk assessment to be very comprehensive and holistic. We'd also like actually this kind of assessment to be focused on an individual. Sometimes the issues that we have on our minds that may not really reflect what a person is experiencing as a person, and we like when the people are doing the screening to focus on the individual and understand what that particular individual is going through, and understand as to where exactly they can seek help and find it, and make sure that they're placed in a better environment than they were before. We're also looking at honest assessment based on evidence. That's why we also ask the people that are doing the assessments to ensure that they're very well qualified, and they refrain from personal biases, but actually what they do is based on the evidence that is provided at that particular moment. And then we have the standardized comprehensive risk assessment. As I said earlier on, we had a lot of people, a lot of programs, a lot of projects actually doing their own risk assessments that were not standardized, and that really affected our aim of comprehensively, or basically a coordinated way of programming. And the other principle that we have now to eliminate that kind of silo risk assessment is to have standardized comprehensive risk assessment as guided by this particular tool that we are discussing today. And finally, it's on having qualified staff so that the assessment is done by people that really understand what exactly is going on, so that by that they're able to identify the key risks that need to be identified, and they are also to really refer the HYWs to services that that is aligned to the risks that have been identified. The last slide, please. So my colleague Edwin will go into details in how we have done these things, but at national level, I thought I could also share that through this kind of comprehensive risk assessment, there has been a lot of stakeholder coordination that has been improved. Previously, we had a lot of partners working in the same areas, but not really knowing each other. People doing the very same things, not coordinating to make sure that probably they are planning together, they're implementing things together, they're monitoring together. But coming up with this kind of tool has really helped our stakeholders to have to do things in a more coordinated way, and this has improved administration of the standardized tool. There have been new networks that have been identified by our implementers, wherever they are, and this has made referrals a bit easier. So we have referrals that are done across sectors, have referrals that are done across even projects, making sure that we are targeting the HYWs comprehensively, and we're not really operating in silos. On this note, I will ask my colleague to take us through a more specialized presentation, focusing basically on the HIV risk assessment part, which is the main topic for today. Thank you very much. Over.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jacob. Over to you, Edwin, to take us through your section. And then afterwards, I think I've seen is Crispin Chagwa also as the implementing partner. Over to you.
Thank you so much, Madam Dr. Andrina, for giving us an opportunity to present on the progress that we've been able to register as a Global Fund grant. So basically, our presentation is in kind of 3 fourths. Firstly, I'm going to provide an overview in terms of the grant, how we started, what we've been able to do currently, and what we're trying to achieve as a program. And Crispin Chagwa from Bakashiri, one of the implementing partners, is going to come in to provide a more detailed risk assessment process, the key achievements, as well as the lessons learned and the best practices. And of course, it will be good for us as well to appreciate the feedback from the peer educators, one of the cadres that is really implementing the tool on the ground. And of course, most importantly, we are going to get some feedback from one of the beneficiaries, the HYW, who has been able to benefit from the screening processes. Can we go to the next slide, please? So basically, as a starting point, the Global Fund grant started in 2021. It has a number of modules, one of which is the AGYW module. So as a program, we are targeting adolescent girls and young women in the age brackets of 10 to 24, probably with a defined package of HIV prevention services. So basically, the grant, the program is mainly aimed at reducing the new instances of HIV amongst HYW. I think Anna and Jacob have rightly presented on the vulnerabilities when it comes to HIV. And I think this age bracket of 10 to 24 is one of the affected subpopulations that we are trying to target as a program. So in terms of the implementation arrangement, we are implementing the grant in 4 districts of Lilongwe, Mangochi, Cholo, and Mlanje. These are HIV high burden districts, and we are implementing the same. Our vision is the principal recipient for the Global Fund grant, and we are implementing the same through our sub-recipient organizations. I think as you can see from the slide, Action Aid Malawi, another organization, is implementing in Mangochi. Girls Empowerment Network is implementing in Mlanje, Pakachere in Cholo, and Plan International Malawi in Lilongwe. be urban. So in a nutshell, it's a program that is there for 3.5 years, between 1 January 2021 to 30 June 2024. Another slide, please. So basically, just to shed more light from what I said, basically, program goal is to contribute towards the reduction of new HIV incidences, the new HIV infection amongst adolescents and young women aged between 10 to 24 years by 2024. As I said, that's the period that we are implementing the grant. And of course, for us to achieve that, basically, the interventions are tailor-made to empower AGYWs to adopt healthy lifestyle practices that promote healthy living and reduce essentially the new HIV infections. And of course, beyond that, we are trying to address the social, cultural, religious, legal, and gender-related barriers that hinder access to services and increase HIV. Issues to do with education. If the AGYWs are not empowered to go to school, obviously there's that relationship when it comes to HIV. We are trying to address that. We are also trying to address the gender barriers, gender-based violence, be it sexual and other forms of gender-based violence that are there for us to address with them. And beyond that, the issues of lifestyle, the issues of access to services and all that. These are the things that we are trying to address through the program as the strategic objectives. Another slide. So basically, when it comes to targeting, as I said, it's between 10 to 24. But we're not just targeting each and every HYW who is 10 to 24. Basically, it's about targeting the most vulnerable. We have to do the profiling. And I think the tool that we're talking about, the tool and the process that we're talking about today, is the one that enables us to fully target the right HYWs. So basically, we're talking about reaching out to the high risk, the most vulnerable, be it economically, in terms of being from child-aided families, having disability, being school dropouts, and most importantly, being sexually active and survivors of GBV. So these are the key category of HYW that we are targeting in terms of their vulnerabilities. So once we are able to target these are in two forms. Some HYWs are in school. We are able also to target them. And also we have another category of the vulnerable groups who are out of school. These are young, be it unmarried, or some are married, and some are even older. But I think our identification of HYW using the standard screening tool is basically to look at their risks and vulnerability, and then for us to determine whether we should target them with interventions or not. So basically, the process, as we have to see, is coming from that background of reducing the new instances of HIV amongst the adolescent girls and young women, and doing so in a manner that we are targeted to make sure that we are reaching out to the most vulnerable HYWs who are at risk of contracting the infections. Another slide. Another slide, please. So having provided that background information, Crispin Chagwa, who is one of the implementers from Pakashere, one of the implementing partners, will take us through the risk screening process for us to appreciate what happens on the ground, and of course to see what have been the key highlights in terms of best practices, and of course if there are any challenges and the best forwards that have been able to administer the same. Over to you, Crispin.
Thank you very much, Edwin. Thank you very much, everyone. This is Crispin, the partners that are implementing the HYW component here in Malawi. So basically, I'll take you through the risk screening process. Thereafter, we'll link this screening to referral for service uptake. Then finally, I'll share some results with regards to those that are referred for service uptake, as well as how the actual access to service was done. So basically, when we talk about risk screening, this is a process where an adolescent girl and the young woman who may be at risk of any harm is screened so as to identify or recognize the risk as well as to minimize it. So as a program, we have PH carers and the patrons and matrons that administer a tool which has questions so as to ascertain or to identify the risk that an adolescent girl has. And this administration or this screening is done on a one-to-one kind of interaction. And these questions are framed in a very non-sensitive and non-stigmatizing way. Now, the whole essence of conducting the screening process like this one is to identify potential vulnerabilities that the clients or the young girls, young women have. And also we try to come up with some support services or referrals where necessary. Further to that, there is also need to create awareness. The young girls, young women need to know the risk that they have with regards to HIV/AIDS or sexually transmitted infections, and not only making them aware, but also putting in place some measures to mitigate those challenges. And also, this is aimed at identifying some topics or messages that have to be delivered to an adolescent girl and young woman who has been identified as having a certain risk. So upon doing this risk screening, and after identifying a need for service uptake or maybe for additional support, the one who is conducting the risk the screening, be it a PH carer or a matron, issues a referral where the client has to be further screened by a qualified service provider, be it a care provider or social care or another service provider. This is done to ascertain the vulnerability that the adolescent girl and young woman has. Next slide, please. Yeah, so the tool that we are using under the program has three main components or three main stages. The first stage is where an assessment of knowledge an AGY has on HIV/AIDS is done. So what is done under this during this stage is that the PH carer engages the client through a set of questions to know or to understand the kind of knowledge that a client or adolescent girl has. You appreciate the fact that the quality of information that one has is very, very crucial with regards to acquisition as well as application of HIV/AIDS. So this is also one of the most important stages when it comes to AGY screening process. So the information that the PH carer or the matron has at the end informs her or him of the type of messaging or the type of support that an adolescent girl is supposed to receive. And I should mention that during this kind of interaction, the PH carer or the matron records all questions which a client struggled to give correct answers, or maybe she completely gave a wrong answer. So at the end, all this, the long information or the long answers, a feedback is given, and also the right information is given. Having done the knowledge assessment, there is now part of behavior assessment. This is where now the PH carer is assessed on her behavior, not only sexual life or history, but also some other behaviors beyond the sexual life that increases the client risk of acquiring HIV/AIDS. So this kind of screening is one crucial part for the whole process, because in an event that the PH carer isn't careful enough, the client may end up hiding some most important information. So the PH carer or the matron needs to conduct this session in a manner that makes the client open up and also feeling comfortable, so that all the information which is very crucial is shared for decision making, and where necessary, issuing of referral. And beyond that, there is now the risk status assessment stage. So what the PHK or matron does under this during this stage is now to analyze the responses that were given during stage 2. Now, through this kind of analysis, the patron or the PHK will be able to know the type of risk that the client has with regards to HIV/AIDS acquisition. Next slide, please. So just as was the case under knowledge assessment, where the PHK gives feedback on what the client needs to know. Under this stage, what the matron or PHK does is also to give some feedback on the behaviors that the client or the AGYW has. And for any identified risk behavior, the AGY is given appropriate messages on how she can reduce the risk. And also she's advised on the right kind of behavior that she needs to adopt or to change, or areas that she needs to improve on. And where necessary, where the client seems to be moving on the right path, the adolescent, the PHK or matron also recommends the type of behavior that has to be sustained by the client. So at the very end, there is the usual drills, thanking the adolescent girl for the time, and also assuring her that the information that has been shared be kept confidential. And where necessary, a referral is now issued for onward service uptake. And this referral is informed by the type of information or what the PHK stroke matron noted or discovered during her analysis with regards to the behavior of the client. Next slide. So for the referrals for onward service uptake, so the PHK or matron do refer those that are in need of services for onward right services. There are several services that are a PHK or a matron may refer an HY for. They include HIV testing. This includes HIV self-testing, STI screening and management, also uptake of condoms and lubricants, PrEP, PEP, GBV support services, sexual and reproductive health services, psychosocial support, and education, just to mention some. And there are several areas or service points where these clients are referred to. I should mention that each and every cadre, be it a PHK, a matron, has what we call a service directory. So what this service directory contains is a list of facilities as well as the service providers at each facility that provide the type of facility, be it HIV testing. So every PHK has that a directory for her community, which indicates where one can access, for example, HIV testing services, and who she can meet for that kind of service, where she can get STI screening management services, and which officer is responsible for that, be it education support, DPV support. So that's the type of a tool which assists the PHKs and matrons when they are issuing the referrals. And the referrals may be made to study clinics or mobile clinics or outreach clinics. So these outreach clinics are requested upon needing the number of people that are in need of services. So a PHK, after screening clients that are under her charge, may request officers of implementing partners for the HYW project in their district to bring a service provided to her community. Besides that, there are also youth-friendly health services days. These are special days in a month during which every health facility is supposed to provide services to young people. So young people are mobilized to the health facilities. So a referral can also be made to such facilities on the designated days. We then also have one-stop centers. So these are facilities where various services are provided, especially to survivors of GBV. So a referral may also be referred. So talk about support groups, training clubs, and also education facilities in others. So some of the tools that are used include referral slips. We also have referral service directory. So the directory is the one I just talked about. We also have a referral database, which is used now to track the referrals with regards to those that have been referred for service uptake and also those that were successful. Next slide. Yeah, so briefly, that's the process. The first stage just talked about risk screening or assessment. After that, now a PhD or matron fills up a referral slip where she or he indicates the relevant details, that include the UIC, that is unique identifier code for the client, date, the facility where the client is being referred to, reasons for referral, and that slip is supposed to be filled in 3 parts. One part is given by the one who is issuing. The other 2 parts are given to the client. And during service uptake, what happens is that the service provider now conducts another screening to identify or to understand the issue that she has brought. Now, depending on the screening results conducted by the service provider, now relevant support is given to the client. And the referral which was brought by the client is now either stamped or signed by the service provider, and there is a referral box where now the client has to drop the signed or stamped referral there as evidence that she reported for treatment or for support. The stamping and the signing is done so as to ensure that every referral that is put or dropped in the box is of only those that have received support, to avoid scenarios where one can just get a referral and drop it before getting the results. So at the end of the month, the PhDs and matrons provide reports on those that were referred for service uptake. And after every referral, or every reported referral has to be supported by documentation. That's the referral slip which they keep. Then at the end, M&D and programs team move around the facilities to cross-check to say community X reported 10 referrals for the following services. So they go and check if the referral boxes have those referrals. So that will now determine the number of referrals that were successful against those that were referred. Next slide. So briefly, I just want to share some results from 2021, especially for HIV testing in the STI screening. Having want to go as far as going for GBV support. So for 2021, a total of 4,276 adolescent girls were screened, while for that is semester 1. Semester 2 for 9,347. Semester 1 of 2022, 86,827 were screened, while semester 2 of 2022, 111,081, and the just ending semester, that is January to June 2023, 79,540. So out of these that were screened now, a total of, for example, in 2021, semester one, a total of 2,452 adolescent girls were referred for the service uptake, out of which 245 were tested for HIV and 4 tested positive. For 2021, that is the semester 2 now, out of the 49,000 that were screened, 37,741 were referred. But after screening, further screening by the service providers, 12,313 were deemed eligible for HIV testing, and out of that number, 75 tested positive and were enrolled into care. For 2022, that is semester 1, for 1,777 were referred for HIV testing, out of which 21,000 after further screening, 21,286 were tested for HIV, and 52 tested HIV positive. While for semester 2 of 2022, out of the 111,000 that were screened, 25,601 were referred, and out of that number, 20,656 were tested after another screening by the service providers, and 58 tested HIV positive. And finally, for semester 1 of 2023, which is January to June 2023, 24,822 were referred for service uptake, that is HIV testing, out of which 22 were tested, and 107 were 107 tested HIV positive. And below is the table indicating ages of those that were tested per age band. Next slide. So the next slide is a summary of STI screening and management. And out of those that were screened, depicted or illustrated on the previous slide, 329 were referred for STI screening, out of which 229 were tested and 17 were diagnosed with infections and treated. And for semester 2 of 2021, out of 4,000 that were referred, 4,076 were tested, out of which 96 were were diagnosed with infections and treated. While for semester 1 of FY 2022, 1,336 were referred, out of which 1,324 were screened, and out of which 95 were diagnosed with infections, and the 95 were also treated. While during semester 2 of the same FY 2020, 1,208 were tested out of 1,501 that were referred, with 57 being diagnosed and treated for infections. And finally, semester 1 of FY 2023, 1,087 were referred for STI screening and management, out of which 946 were tested, and 36 were diagnosed with infections, with also 35 being treated. Next slide. Next slide, please. All right, so during the course of our implementation of various interventions, we've learned that having some kind of guidance in terms of implementation is very crucial, because it informs you on the right direction to be taken, and also informs you on the quality of implementation, that the type of implementation that you are conducting. For example, as a grant under the program, we have a quality improvement framework, which guides us as to how each of the key interventions have to be conducted and has to be done. Further to that, the use of peer educators to screen fellow young people has also proved very crucial and very successful, because these being people of the same age category, and also they are all adolescents, they are people who trust one another, they are open to each other. So it has been very easy for them to identify the vulnerabilities and also make referrals, because they are open to each other and they know one another's behavior. Further to that, the risk screening tools, we've learned that have to be very short and shouldn't be too much complicated. because most of the cadres that were used are not all that advanced when it comes to their education. Most of them, their highest level of qualification, the secondary education. So having a tool which is user-friendly is very, very crucial for implementation of a program of this nature. And also the use of unique identifier codes is also very, very important, as it gives assurance to the clients that their information is safe and there is confidentiality in whatever discussions they are having with the peer cadres or matrons. And finally, under the best practices and lessons learned, supporting the peer educators and matrons has also improved the number of people that are rich with service uptake, that are being screened, because previously they used to struggle to travel. So this restricted them to reach only those that are within walkable distances. But with the coming in of bicycles, they are able to reach even those that are in distant communities from their homes. Finally, one of the challenges which as a program faced is the Cyclone Friday, which most of us are aware. This affected the screening because people were forced to move out of their homes, and it was very hard for the young people to be screened. But though things were like that, young people, the adolescent girls, the peer educators and matrons could still reach these young people in the evacuation camps where they were residing. Next slide. Yeah, so that is that on the performance, on how the screening is done. Let me hand over to Edwin.
Yeah, thank you so much, Crispin, for that well elaborate, end process of the screening, going to the best practices. At this point, we have 3 minutes for one of our peer educators to kind of provide provide input into what has been the experience and all that. Because I think in the presentation, as we rightly indicated, the peer educators are key in terms of administering the tool. So we have Anna Onyoro, who is one of our peer ambassadors from Mulanje, to give us the way in terms of what has been experienced in terms of supporting other HYWs to get screened, as well as referring them to service providers for service provision. Over to you, Anna.
Thank you, Edwin. Thanks everyone for the opportunity. My name is Hannah Onyoro. I'm 22 years working as peer educator in Mulanje. I would like to take you through my experience working as a peer educator and using the screening tool. I like this tool very much because it has been helping me to assess comprehensively the needs of HYW and plan services based on risk in my community. I used the tool in different places. For example, at the home of the HYW, sometimes during social events happening in the community, like sporting activity, or during outreach clinics. I also apply the tool in different situations. For example, HIV, GBV, and STI, and able to bring out similar results with specific risk being explored. And sometimes case plans worked out and referrals taking place. I feel this peer-to-peer approach makes the HYW feel comfortable, empowered, as well as motivated to access services. As a peer educator in a month, I screen up to 25 HYW, including helping adolescent girls to return to school. This makes me proud because I'm helping adolescent girls and young women in my community to make informed, healthy decisions and choices. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, Anna, for that. At this point, let me invite also one of the beneficiaries, the one HYW has been supported through the screening. to share her experience in terms of how the screening has helped her.
Okay, thank you, Edwin. Thank you, everyone, for giving me an opportunity. I'm Dada Japunda. I'm 22 years old, AGYW beneficiary. I'm from TN Drama. I'm from Drama Village, GTN and Residential. I found it easier to talk to peer educators because we are busy. Through the screening, I was equipped with the right information about HIV and AIDS. I was about HIV and AIDS and risk status. This has helped me to gather the courage to go for the voluntary testing HIV and AIDS to know my status. For example, I was protected myself from unsafe sex. Even getting condoms is easier than before because peer educators give us condoms. Give us condoms in our communities or villages. Our peer educators invite the health workers to come and provide HIV testing, family planning, STIs, GBV screening, and GBV screening and STI services was in right in the village. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Tadara, for that testimonial. I think from what we had prepared to share with you, this is where we end. Let me hand over the floor to Dr. Andrina for the way forward. Thank you so much for this platform.
Thank you so much, Edwin, Crispin, and our HYW, Hannah, and Tadala, for giving us your experience, because as a nation, we can come up with beautiful tools, systems, but we really needed to hear from those who are using it, the beneficiaries themselves. So we've heard for ourselves, for Hannah and Tadala, how they are benefiting from this tool. Thank you so much to all the presenters. Starting with Anna, who gave an overview, and then Jacob, who took us through on the AGYW programming, and also the piloting of the tool, and Edwin and Crispin, they took us through on the how it's done, and our AGYW. At this moment, I would like to open the floor for discussions. This is Q&A time. So I would like to welcome and invite our participant countries or anyone else who want to ask a question. Start by identifying yourselves and ask the question. But before we do that, we already have some questions on the chat. So we will first answer the questions that are on the chat. And just to mention that it's not only the presenters that can respond, it will be a Team Malawi to respond. But first of all, I will mention the first person to respond, and others can beef up. I think the first question we had is from Abigail. This was they would like us to share our experience of the management of gender-based violence, which takes into account the reporting of cases by victims and gathering of information. And was a similar, also same question from Boris, that I also would like we should share our experience in managing gender-based violence, which takes into account reporting of cases and collection of information. So maybe we go by question and question so that we don't miss out. So in this case, maybe Crispin, you can start answering that, and if there's any addition the team can add. Over to you, Crispin, to respond to this question.
Thank you very much, Doc. Thank you very much, Abigail, for the question. So in terms of response to gender-based violence, we have also service providers or facilities that do provide that kind of support, be it at community level and district level. I'll begin with at community level. So at community level, we have what are referred to as rapid response teams. these are structures that were set by government, and they have what are referred to as child protection workers who act as leaders for the structure. So in an event that there is a GBV case, it means a PHK or a matron first referral point are these structures. I did indicate that we have referral directory. So the referral directory also contains information on the RRTs that are available in the communities, as well as people that are responsible in coordinating and supporting survivors for GBV at community level. And these structures are well connected to other service providers, be it health facilities, and also the police and others. So such that in an event that there is need for other clinical services, be it PrEP or PrEP or testing, there is that linkage, because membership of these structures also draws people from these other service providers. And where necessary, if there is need to make a referral to the police, again, these structures make the referral to the police. So in an event that they haven't been able to respond or to support the survivor, now they connect that survivor to district level structures, be it victim support unit at district level, or the one-stop center, which is in most cases housed at the district health offices. Briefly, that is that on GBV response. But before maybe the next question comes in, let me ask my friends, because we have friends here from Brown and also actually to come if there is an addition.
Yeah. Any other other partners to add before we go to the next question?
Yeah, we have also a peer cadre here, a peer ambassador, who would like to make an addition on the same.
Oh, Hannah, over to you, Hannah.
Okay, so hi everyone. My name is Maria Jampula. I'm one of the peer ambassadors under AGYW project here in Malawi, Longwe. So in terms of managing gender-based violence cases, as peer ambassadors, we also manage GBV cases in our communities. Since we assist our fellow young girls in the community, so we are able to identify different gender-based violence cases in the communities during the assessment. So when we identify the case, we also refer the cases to the police, because we work hand in hand with different partners like police. We also have community leaders which we work with, and there's also a rapid response committee, whereby in the rapid response committee, there are different leaders from the communities. So we work with them, and also we have child protection workers. We have social workers from the government work together. So when we find out that there is a case during our assessment, we refer the case to the police, because we already have the referrals which we use. Yeah, I can just say sorry.
Thank you so much, Maria, for that. I think at this point we can go to the next question. The next question was, how often does contact stage occur? Is the entry point for referral a continuous cycle? Issues may change over time. How are referrals amended? So maybe you can also start, Crispin, and others can join in. Over to you.
We are a bit lost, Doc. Are you able to repeat the question?
Oh, yes. The question is that how often does contact stage occur? Is the entry point for referral a continuous cycle? Issues may change over time. How are referrals amended? And you can clarify. Okay, maybe we might ask, this question came from Katlego. Can you maybe clarify the question? Over to you, Katlego.
Hello, everyone. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you for the floor, Doc. Thanks for the presentation. It was good. Thank you very much. So my question is related to the phase of the risk assessment. So in my understanding, the process includes doing a risk assessment form, a peer educator or a matron sits down one-to-one with the AGYW, and then they do the assessment, and then a referral form is filled, and then they refer that person to different type of services based on what the issues that were identified on the screening. So my question is, what happens if 2 months that person needs more than what they were referred for? Is there a way that they are, the peer educator stays in touch with the AGYW? What's the process if maybe now what they need is maybe post-exposure prophylaxis, but the first time maybe they were not engaging in unsafe sex, or they were not raped, etc. So when do you know? How should I put this? How do they then get in touch with the peer educator for them to be referred for other services that previously they did not require? Is my question clear?
Yeah, I think you have clarified. Is it clear now, Edwin? I can hand over to you and your team to respond. Over to you. Edwin, is that clear now?
Yeah, very clear.
Okay, so over to you and your team to respond.
Yeah, so basically, we are going to respond to the question in 2 parts. Just to clarify that, I think for us, when we are administering the tool to the HYW in question, the first stage is the contact stage, where we have to build the rapport before doing the screening. And the program that we have, the guideline is that it's mandatory for you to screen to an HYW for a period of 6 months. So basically, it will be one contact when it comes to the program standard. For the 6 months, we are able to screen an HYW once. And much as it's once, we don't mean to do it just one day. We can do it maybe so many times, as long as it is within that 6 months period. So in some instances, we are able to identify all the risk factors within that period of, maybe just a single contact. We are able to identify all the factors that we are calling risk factors. In that nutshell, that becomes the only time that we are able to screen the HYW person. But there have been continuously changes. To agree with the person who posed the question, there have been some instances whereby you screen an HYW for risk factors in January, for example, only to note that by demand in February, there have been some risks that have been developed. In that way, we are forced to do another screening. So much as we have that 6 months ban for us to do this risk screening, we don't just do it as a one-day process. It's a process that is continuous, and where we have to do a reassessment, we are able to do the same in order for us to identify other risk factors and provide the required support that is needed. But I think the key take-home message is that once you build that rapport, the HYWs are able to demand more assessment. And even beyond providing this assessment by the peer educator, we have also that platform whereby you also build the capacity of the HYW in question to do a self-assessment. So it's not like every time that they did assessment, it has to be the peer educator doing the assessment. They are also empowered to do self-assessment on their own, so that they're able to kind of mitigate the factors and the risks that are in question. I hope that responds to the question that was posed.
Thank you, Edwin. Oh yeah, you can go ahead. Any additions from the members?
Yeah, so just to add on what Edwin has said, we did indicate that there are those that are identified as having a risk. So what a peer educator does is that for those that were identified to have a risk, there is that continuous monitoring just to check informally, in engaging them, just to check if the risk is still there and if they need any further kind of support. So where the peer educator or the matron feels like maybe this kind of risk is beyond me, or maybe we need some kind of external support. That's where now there is engagement of other service providers. For example, maybe healthcare providers. If it's about HIV/AIDS risk, it means a PhD knows that this person, after engaging with her, doesn't bring any improvement, or she's still struggling to improve. Now she is referred to other providers to ensure that the risk that she has been minimized. That's something that I wanted to add. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that addition, Crispin. Katlego, has that responded to your question?
Yes, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you so much. I would like to extend the invitation to people to even ask by raising their hands, because we're going through the questions that were already on the chat, but then people are free to raise their hand so that they can ask the questions themselves directly. So over to members, but you can raise hand and then you'll be allowed to speak and ask your question while we are looking at the remaining questions on the chat. Anyone wants to ask a question? Okay, Rita, I recognize you. Over to you. Go ahead and ask your question.
Thank you. And good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much, the presenters, for an insightful presentation. I would like to know what ethical factors were taken into account when using the tool for assessing AGYW.
I don't know about my colleagues. I didn't hear at the beginning. Can you just repeat your question?
She was a bit breaking. So
yes, you were breaking. We were breaking. We couldn't hear you.
Okay. Sorry. What ethical factors were taken into consideration when you are assessing the tool on AGYW? Can you explain further for me, please?
What ethical considerations?
Yes.
What
please.
ethical considerations?
Yes.
Yes.
Please.
Over to you, Edwin and Tim. What ethical considerations were taken into account? I've gotten the question, Edwin and the team.
Yeah, we have captured the question.
All right,
yes.
Right. Hi, everyone. I'm Chimame Mbote for Plan International. On the ethical considerations that once we engage peer ambassadors or peer educators into the screening process, they're given the mandate to conduct the screening process. Now, the screening process is not just being done overnight, but we also conduct capacity building for the peer ambassadors, where they're given the mandate and they're given the ethical considerations to make sure that whenever they're visiting the community, their fellow HYW, they should be able to know that their parents also have the, they have to sign for, what do we call it? Okay, the the consent, yeah? So the consent is being given to the peer educators so that they carry out the process without any challenges. And an oath is also taken to make sure that whenever they're conducting their business, they should be conducting the business without any failure and without fail, to ensure that we get the right process and the right results from the communities. Yeah, another thing that I would want to highlight is when the process itself as identified from the risk screening process. The referral is being done where an HYW has been screened to have to be on high risk of contracting HIV. So that process in its own is being provided where an HYW would, a peer educator would refer the HYW for further services from service providers in the hospitals or clinics. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Yeah. Anyone to ask?
Yeah, just as an extension, I think beyond providing the capacity building, it's also important for the audience to note that we talked something to do with a unique identifier code. So basically, the peer educators, when they're recording the information, they don't write names. We use the UIC to ensure confidentiality, but also to emphasize the fact that there is a monitoring process that we're able to do as a program. So what we did is to develop what we call the quality improvement framework, whereby we have the benchmarks in terms of when we say providing the core package as doing the screening. We have benchmarks in terms of what the peer educator should do to ensure ethical process. And I think through the KIF as a monitoring tool, we are able to, on a quarterly basis, monitor how the peer educators are able to provide the screening process to the PA, I mean to the PS, to the HYWs. And also beyond that, also to ensure that we have that ethical process when we are doing the screening. We also, as a program, we have our feedback mechanism. In the facilities where the girls are referred, we have put a box where they can be able to provide feedback to make sure that we are not only providing the screening, but also we are able to hold the peer educators and the matrons who are providing, the screening accountable, so that by the end of the day, we should be ethical in what we are doing to ensure that there is a consistent demand from the HYWs to be benefiting from our processes. Yeah, sure.
Thank you.
But also,
as
a summary, we are saying even before doing the screening, there has to be some confirmation from the HYW, the beneficiary, so that we have a confirmed process. Thank you.
Thank you, Malawi team, for those comprehensive responses to that question. And now I recognize India. Dramani, I recognize you. The floor is yours.
Okay, thank you very much. I just want to thank the team for this excellent work that they have done. My concern is in our setting here in Ghana, adolescents engaging in a sexual activity is not so much approved. So my worry is in the assessment of the risk. How do we deal with social desirability effects? In the sense that the people are more likely to respond in ways they believe what you want to hear, to be seen as not engaging in those risky behaviors when they may actually be involved in that. So in administering the tool and the training, how do we overcome that challenge of the likelihood of such adolescents not being very upfront with the reality of how risky their lifestyle have been? Thank you.
Thank you so much for that very, very, very important question. Over to you, Edwin, and the team, and even Jacob, you can come in. So over to you, Malawi team. How do we do such situations?
Thank you so much, Raman Yakub, for that very important question. It's a very important question because it also corresponds to some of the experiences that we as a program are able to encounter. There are instances where, if you look at the question that we talked about having non-sensitive questions, but at some instances, a person is not willing to provide all the required information. And for us, the contact stage is very key in terms of that ensuring that we are able to build a rapport. When we talk about screening, we don't restrict the screening process to one day. The idea is to make sure that before you proceed with providing doing the assessment and the client being able to provide all the information that we need, we make sure that at the entry point, we're able to build that rapport. And there have been instances whereby when you meet an HYW, you are not able to proceed with the assessment because there is no assurance that the HYW in question is ready to provide the information. So a take-home message for that is, one, we ensure that there is that rapport. There has to be a point when you are able to build a trust so that the HYW is confident to share the information that he needs to provide. And I think as one of the best practices that we have said, we know that we are able to do the peer educators and matrons are able to do the screening, but as a best practice for us, the experience has been that peer educators are more effective because of the issue of trust. The experience is not that good when it comes to matrons because there are those fears as maybe I'm going to be judged. But when it comes to the trained peer educators, I think they are able to build that rapport and they're able to have that trust in terms of them being ready to provide the information. But and also beyond the peer education element, another issue that aids us in terms of getting all the information. I mean, the HYW being able to provide openly the information is that when they see the end result, once you do the assessment and they are able to get the services that they requested for, I think that's where now we have more HYWs coming forward to providing information because they know that by the end of this process, they are able to register some frauds in terms of them having their lives improved. For example, when we started, we started on a low note. People could not understand, including parents, as to why we are doing what we are doing. But after some time, with session meetings and the communities being able to see the fruits of the assessment, they are forthcoming and they are willing to provide the information. So number one, the issue of rapport, the issue of trust because of peer education, as well as the issue of them being able to access the services. These three pillars have been able to help us in terms of getting the information that we need from the HYWs. I also have an extension from Crispin.
Just to add on what Edwin has said, the other important thing is that we always conduct data validation and verification during the various interventions. For example, if you have a clinic or we have a community engagement meeting, we take advantage of such interventions just to cross-check and also reach out to those reported have been reached by the PA cadres or the matrons or patrons. So through that, we are able to verify the type of communication and messaging which is done by the PA educators as well as the patrons and matrons. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Malawi team. And now I'll go through some. Yes, there's an addition. Okay, over to you, Jacob. Go over to you, Jacob. An addition.
Yeah, just to appreciate the question that came. I think it's been very clear that sometimes, yes, the HYWs are not really able to provide the answers as they should come. Sometimes they tend to really give you the responses that probably you need. And I remember, for example, our dreams team in Malawi conducted a study on that and realized that there were some, the responses that they got through, this peer-to-peer risk assessments and the responses they got from self-assessments were different. And just to report that, that's an area that we also are trying to explore to really encourage self-assessments so that if the HYWs are not really willing to provide that information to other people, they can self-assess and be able to understand as to where exactly they can get the services or interventions that they need, depending on the identified risks. And yeah, I think that's addition that I wanted to make.
Thank you so much, Jacob, for that very important addition to the issue. Thank you so much. Now, as I have a number of questions from the chat, so I'll just read them through so we can respond to as Malawi team. The first question is that for STIs referral and screening, teens were referred for screening and testing. Is this testing lab testing or use of syndromic assessment for the positive, which were found? And if it was lab testing, which tests were conducted? That's the first question. So someone can take that one while I'm about to read the next question. Over to you. Who will take this one, Edwin or Crispin?
Yeah, Crispin will take that.
Over to you, Crispin.
Thank you very much. So the type of testing which is done is syndromic assessment. That's the type of assessment which is done by the provider. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. For Malawi, we're using syndromic. We are not yet there, using lab testing. And the other question is that is from Dr. Oda. He would like to know what national coverage of peer educators is, how they are recruited and connected to the national health system. How are the peer educators recruited and the coverage of it also? Edwin, you want to take that one up? Edwin and Tim? And an addition to the question, are these peer educators paid? So Edwin and Tim, Crispin, so what is the coverage of the peer educators in the country and how are they recruited and are they paid?
Okay, thank you, Doc. We have a process, recruitment process, where we have a criteria, an HY that is fit for the purpose, would go through interviews, and those interviews are formal interviews where we assess a peer educator if she is able to read, write, and interpret information, as well as translate the information from local language to English, so that whenever she's reporting, we should be getting the right information and quality data. That's number one. The peer educator is not paid, but is doing a voluntary work. Yeah, so what we do is that instead of paying them, what we provide is incentives to make sure that they keep going and they keep working in the communities, meeting their fellow peers to ensure that they are carrying out the services without challenges. Part of the incentives that we provide is like we provide bicycles where they should be able to move from one point to point B. And we also provide writing materials, carrier bags, umbrellas in case of rains during the rainy season. And we also provide some lunch allowances for them to keep going into the field. Yeah, maybe Crispin, you have something to add as an extension? Okay, that's it.
Yeah, so basically, Jacob, maybe you can handle the other part of how the national coverage of the peer educators is like. Jacob, you want to handle that part?
Jacob, are you there? If Jacob is not there, Mahara, you're online. Can you take up that one? What's the coverage for peer educators for the nation? Hello? Can you hear me, or it's me who has lost connection?
We can hear you, Dr. Andrina.
Okay, so I thought it's I thought it's me who has lost connection. Mahara or Jacob, are you there so that you can respond to the question on what's the coverage for peer educators?
Okay, so if we have lost them, I think let me come forward to provide the feedback.
Okay, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so basically, currently the peer educators that we have as a country are probably project-based. We have partners implementing the HYW programs throughout the country, and all the partners that we have are able to have peer educators within their localities. But I think the most important thing for us as a country is that we make sure that we align the peer educators that we have to not just the health system, but also to the entire government system. For example, if you are in Cholo, and as Global Fund, maybe we are supporting the interventions, we make sure that in the recruitment process, the government structures are the key stakeholders in the recruitment. but also beyond the program that we have. We are able to transition the peer educators from the projects that they are supporting to continue supporting the healthy system, amongst other structures that we are able to have as a country. I hope that responds to the question.
Okay, thank you so much, Edwin, for that. And I've seen there's Dr. Adingra on to ask a question. And also I would like, looking at the time, I would allow maybe 3 more questions so that then we can wrap up and give a chance to the participating countries to give their takeaway messages. So now the floor is open for you, Dr. Adingra. Over to you, the floor is yours. Dr. Adingra, you can
Hello.
ask the question.
I speak French. You take the English channel.
Oh, okay. Yes, go ahead with your question.
D'accord, j'avais posé 3 questions dans le chat, mais je n'ai pas eu de réponse, donc j'ai levé la main. La première question, c'est concernant l'outil. J'ai demandé, que pensez-vous de l'outil de détermination de la taille des adolescentes et jeunes filles vulnérables de l'ONU-SIDA qui met l'accent plutôt sur les comportements sexuels plutôt que la vulnérabilité sociale. Je ne sais pas si vous avez eu accès à cet outil-là, parce que votre outil met aussi bien l'accent sur le comportement sexuel que les vulnérabilités sociales. Et quel est votre regard sur l'outil proposé par l'ONU-SIDA? Ma deuxième question que j'avais posée, est-ce que l'outil de vulnérabilité des adolescentes et jeunes femmes proposé fait en même temps le screening et en même temps l'outil de screening pour le dépistage? Parce que j'ai constaté que dans la présentation des données, les taux de positivité pour le VIH étaient très faibles comparativement aux IST. Donc, je me posais la question, est-ce que cet outil est également adapté pour le dépistage? Merci.
Thank you so much for that question. And may I request anyone online who heard this question if they can repeat it in English for our colleagues, Malawi team, to be able to respond. Anyone online?
Dr. Andrina, I think Dr. Adingra had one last question he wanted to ask. I've got the first 2. If he asks his third one, I'm happy to summarize for you.
Okay, so let him ask his third question, and then Kerry will summarize for us in English. Over to you, Doc. Can you ask your third question?
Merci. Ma troisième question, c'était par rapport à l'outil qui a été proposé pour le screening des adolescentes et les jeunes femmes. Je me posais la question, est-ce que les 7 domaines qui avaient été identifiés pour faire l'outil ont été identifiés sous la base de quels critères? Donc, 7 domaines de vulnérabilité des adolescents et jeunes ont été identifiés pour faire l'outil. Mais sous la base de quels critères ces 7 domaines de vulnérabilité-là ont été identifiés? C'était ma troisième question.
Okay. So, Kerry, over to you. Can you translate to us?
Let me try my best. So I think the first question was around the first tool that was presented by the first speaker, and just considering how much of the tool was weighted towards understanding sexual vulnerability versus social vulnerability or other vulnerabilities. And yeah, so I think the question was just trying to understand where was the emphasis being placed in understanding vulnerability, and why. So that's the first question, I think. The second question, from my understanding, was around when the tool was being administered, and if this was being done at the same time as screening and testing for HIV or STIs. So just kind of the sequencing and whether the assessment was done, during HIV and STI screening and testing. And then the third question, there were 7 different domains in the screening tool. And the question was just around what informed those 7 domains. So what kind of sources or what considerations directed the country to classifying 7 domains.
Okay, thank you so much, Kerry. Jacob, Edwin, Crispin, we've gotten the questions. Can we now give the responses? Over to you, Malawi team. And we take it that when the Malawi team responds, Kerry, you also translate in French to Dr. Adingra.
Dr. Andrina, there is live interpretation. So if everyone who understands English selects the English channel, you'll hear the French into English. And anyone who's French speaking clicks the French channel, and that's how they've been listening. So it should happen real time.
Okay. So Malawi team, please respond now that Kerry translated the questions. Over to Edwin and team.
Can I start?
Oh yes, start, Jacob, and then the others can come later.
Okay, so I'll respond on where the 7 domains of assessment are basically based on. That's what I'll take. I think my colleagues will answer the other questions. So as we had indicated earlier on, we have the 4 strategic objectives that we are trying to achieve in HRW program in Malawi, and they relate to health, to education, to gender equality and protection, again to youth development. And from these strategic objectives, we also developed what we call the AGYW minimum package, where we provide a minimum set of interventions aligning to each of these strategic objectives. So we have that minimum package. So what we did when developing this risk assessment tool is to see as to how we can identify the risks of vulnerabilities that relate to the minimum package of interventions and services. So basically this is what it is based on. One thing that may not be very pronounced, or that was added to the screening tool, that may not be directly related to the strategic objectives, is basically on mental health. But as I reported when I was making the presentation, mental health has been an issue that has been reported every now and then. And the prevalence has been so high to the extent that we had to take notice of that and ensure that as we do our assessments, that is also reflected on the tool. So that's only an area that may not align clearly or straight with what is in the minimum package, but everything else that's on the domains is basically based on that kind of minimum package of interventions and services. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. So quickly, Crispin, can you respond the questions that's Edwin and Crispin, the remaining part of the question, so that we can wrap up because we're running out of time. Over to you.
Thank you very much, Doctor. The question on the screening. So the screening is done at 2 levels. The first level is where the peer educator or matron engages the client and do take her through the process of the tool. Thereafter, a referral is made. So during service uptake or before HIV testing, the provider has also to do the screening. So these are the 2 levels as to which the screening is done. From the point of engaging the peer educator and the client, and also before the actual testing or service uptake. That's the second level at which the screening is done, if I got the question correctly. And also I've seen also another question in the comment box on the training of providers. So all providers for youth-friendly services are trained. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you so much for that and for answering all the questions. At this point, as I've said, we are running out of time. Thank you so much for all the questions and the responses. This has indeed been an interesting topic, and there's a lot that we could go on and on and on, but we need to come to an end. And at this point, I would like to invite our participating countries, starting with Ghana, to tell us their takeaway message from this session. You can have your 2 minutes, 2 minutes to 3 minutes. Give us your takeaway message or lessons from this session. Over to you, Ghana. Ghana,
thank you.
Are you online?
Yes, I'm online.
Go ahead. The floor is yours.
Thank you very, very much. We are very, very grateful for this opportunity. We've learned a lot. One first comment. What gets measured gets done. As long as there's a tool that the whole world can use, we are all assured that we can do the right thing and make sure that the increasing set of HIV prevalence in this age cohort will be arrested and arrested well. So as we draw this informative session to a close, I am of the opinion that our collective commitment to addressing all the challenges faced by adolescent girls and young men in relation to HIV reduction is nothing short of inspiring. And I believe that, courtesy the work being done by SSLN and other partners, we are going to eliminate HIV/AIDS by the deadline of 2030. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Ghana, and for that takeaway message from this session. Now I would like to ask South Sudan. This is your time. The floor is yours. Give us your takeaway message or lessons from this. Over to you, South Sudan. South Sudan, are you online? South Sudan? Maybe while South Sudan is getting ready, can I request Botswana to give us your takeaway message from this session? Over to you, Botswana. Okay, can you hear me online or we have lost connection?
Good afternoon from Botswana.
Okay, over to you, floor is yours.
Yes, please. Yeah, for me, my main takeaway messages is around the way the assessment was done, which really gave me the comprehensiveness of the risk assessment, which was really good. And the other thing that I got from this presentation is the use of the unique identifier, which we are still struggling with here in Botswana, and the peer-to-peer approach. This is what I thought is the best approach, because it provides, it gives the AGYW to be able to trust the provider, and also the provision of transport, which we are really struggling with here in Botswana. Thank you. Over.
Thank you so much, Botswana, for that takeaway message. At this point, can I request again, South Sudan, if you are back online? Are you there now?
Yes, hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you loud and clear. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much. I would like to take this opportunity to congratulate and to actually commend all the presenters from Malawi. They work well done. Thank you very much. We have some takeaway notes on actually promising practices from Malawi. South Sudan is a fertile ground actually for AGYW programs, because we have a very small coverage of AGYW program in South Sudan. And what we have learned from Malawi, there are a lot of things that we can be able to replicate and copy and do it in South Sudan, because there are a lot of similarities. And number one, we don't have that a national AGYW strategy that can guide and govern or improve access and streamline services at national and subnational level. not only AGYW alone and their partners as well. So our takeaway is we need actually to develop a national strategy that can actually govern the entire program in the country. Number two, so far we have conducted some of the gender assessment, more or less gender equality. That one has actually given us some huge disparities between boys and girls in South Sudan. And we want to learn the gender equality kind of documentation from Malawi to address actually some structural barriers and SGBV norms that actually deep-rooted in some communities in South Sudan. And we'll still learn more from this kind of gender assessment from Malawi, although we have done some few, but they are not well informed. Also, we would like to to take away from Malawi, we have some program already for AGYW, like a DREAM program. DREAM program is just in one county and 4 localities, which is in a small scale, which is not actually, although the program is comprehensive, but we need actually to do some kind of harmonization of AGW screening tools, because we have intra-health through PEFA. They are also implementing AGYW program among female sex workers. So our last takeaway, the 7 domains for assessing the risk and vulnerability of AGYW and their needs. Actually, we have some similar kind of intervention happening, but as I've said already, in a small scale. So we are very interested on social protection or harm reduction rather among this group, risk-taking behaviors, experience of violence, alcohol and drug abuses. These kind of interventions, they are still lacking in this country. So this is one of our takeaway from the 7 domains. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Sudan. Now, let me give the floor to Republic of Congo, Congo Brazzaville. The floor is yours. 2 minutes, give us your takeaway message. Over to you. Republic of Congo, your takeaway message from this session. Hello? Congo Brazzaville, are you still online? Have we lost you? Anyone from Congo Brazzaville to give us their takeaway message from this session? Hello?
I'm Dr. Enrina.
Yes.
While we wait for colleagues from the Republic of Congo, we've also been informed that there are colleagues from Cote d'Ivoire who have also joined the call, so perhaps we could give them the floor as well.
Okay. Yes. Okay, thank you so much for that. We are told there were colleagues from Cote d'Ivoire who joined the call. So let me give the floor to Cote d'Ivoire to give us their takeaway message. Over to you, 2 minutes, give us your takeaway message.
Hello? Oui, c'est Dr.
Yes, I think there's an echo. Maybe you are using several gadgets in one place. So
Hello?
just use one.
Dr. Akabou de la Côte
Okay,
d'Ivoire.
go ahead.
Allô?
Go ahead, go ahead.
OK. Je suis du programme national de santé scolaire, santé adolescents et jeunes. C'est un programme qui est en charge du ministère de la Santé, qui est en charge de la santé des adolescents et jeunes. Et ce programme a des structures opérationnelles réparties sur toute la Côte d'Ivoire, qui sont des structures de santé dédiées aux adolescents et jeunes, où les prestations sont totalement gratuites. Ce que j'ai retenu de la présentation du Malawi, c'est cet outil adapté et concis, cet outil d'évaluation qui permet un screening vraiment de notre cible, les adolescents et jeunes. Et cet outil-là est administré par les adolescents et jeunes à travers les pairs éducateurs. Nous, on a effectivement un outil d'évaluation, mais c'est un outil administré par les prestataires lorsqu'ils les reçoivent en consultation dans nos structures dédiées. Et cet outil-là, ce qui m'a vraiment retenu, cet outil que le Malawi a présenté permet aussi d'assurer la confidentialité des adolescents et jeunes, ce qui fait que les adolescents sont rassurés et répondent facilement aux questions. Et également, le fait que ce soit des pairs éducateurs qui délivrent ce questionnaire les met aussi en situation ils sont également rassurés. Vraiment, ça nous a permis de nous aussi poser des questions sur les outils d'évaluation que nous mettons en œuvre ici dans nos structures. Merci.
Merci beaucoup, Côte d'Ivoire. And now, can I request if we have Congo Brazzaville online? Congo Brazzaville, Republic of Congo. It seems we have lost them.
I think we have lost them. They were on the call earlier. I think they might.
Yes, earlier they were on the call. We've lost them. But anyway, the good thing they were with us throughout the session. Let me at this point thank each one of us who have been here, especially our participating countries, Botswana, Republic of Congo, South Sudan, and Botswana, and also Cote d'Ivoire that joined us. Thank you so much. And just to mention that we have already shared the Malawi tool with the South to South learning, and they will share you if they have, and I think they've already shared. So let me take this opportunity to thank our Malawi team, the presenters, Anna, Tengule, Jacob, Edwin, Crispin, and our two AGYW, Hannah and Tadala, for the wonderful job they've done and giving us this presentation and also sharing the experience. Thank you for everyone who have participated from all the four countries, including the Malawi team and the Malawi participants. Thank you so much for being there. And last but not least, the South to South learning team for facilitating this. Kerry, receive your honor and gratitude. We are forever grateful for the work you are doing and continuing doing so. And thank you, Maria, for facilitating this. Thanks, everyone, and wish you a blessed afternoon. And as wishing South-to-South learning more stronger and stronger every day. Thank you so much. Have a blessed day. The meeting's finished. And at the end, I would like to ask people if you could just assess this session. There's a poll. You see it on your screen. Just rate the session so that it can give us an idea how it was and which areas we need to improve. Thank you so much. We really appreciate your feedback.